Hello everyone. Oops, should have blown my nose before starting the live. Oh well. 1 second. Yet again my Instagram has switched languages and so everything is on the wrong side. I don't know if anyone else has that thing where just sometimes you sign into Instagram and it's all of a sudden the other way around. I guess that only happens if you have two languages, one's right to left and the other is left to right. But hi, Kendra. Oh, it's really great to see your name at least. And there's Malkie. Hi.
Trying to get here. Here I am.
You are, and you're the right way around. Yay.
Yes. Well, miracles never cease. Here, let me just push this a little further out so you can actually see me. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. That was great.
The room with worse lighting, but it's where I happen to be sitting when I noticed that the time was upon us. So. We are. No, now we can only see your forehead. Hi, Kendra. Hang on, that's 1 second. We seem to be having a greater than average number of technical issues today.
Yeah. Okay, I can do this. Really, I can. Just a second.
My Instagram switched back to English between this morning and now, so everything is on the wrong side.
Okay, I'm just going to let this fall and then figure it out from there. Okay.
Like hold it in your hand.
Basically,
half an hour.
Not
okay.
Quite. Okay, how's this?
Here we are.
Okay.
I can see most of your face.
Okay.
Better.
Hey, we're doing great. Here, you know what?
If
I pull this back a little bit further, and then I will remember for next time. How's this?
There.
What?
Good enough. You're not green. You're not green.
I'm not green. Okay, no wait.
It's still cutting off the top of your head, but I don't think the top of your head is essential for our purposes.
Okay. Here, let me see if I can fix this at all. Maybe I can.
Thank you, everyone, for sticking with us.
Yeah.
Hopefully this will just be
yeah. Okay, here we are. Okay, here we go.
Here we go. Okay, so thank you for joining us. I am Havva Mahler, practitioner of Chinese medicine and expert in classical Chinese astrology, and with me is
Malkie Rimon, and I am a badass life coach.
You absolutely are, and welcome to Thriving Sex.
It does, as it does.
Yes, we Instacast. We're not quite up to pods yet. Every Tuesday at 6:30 Israel time. And whenever everyone has finished switching their time zones over, I'll go back to telling you what that is in various other countries. But right now, I don't know what the time difference is between us and any other country.
Yeah, it's
I know the time is already switched. I know we're switching at the end of the week.
Oh, we are? Oh, I didn't know.
Yes, we are. Okay, so after the Instacast, I will catch you up, or you can Google.
I still remember back when we voted on when daylight savings was, and it wasn't like a regular thing.
That was insane.
So part of me still believes that they're going to change it any minute now.
Okay, so apparently this year daylight savings switches on the second day of Ramadan. And a lot of people were like, maybe we should just move it this once. And I totally get that. But on the other hand, I also totally get the argument of never let the government try and change daylight savings again, because
never let them touch it again, because it was so bad. It was so bad. It's worse than you know.
Maybe it'll be in February. Maybe it'll be in April. Maybe you'll wake up tomorrow and the times will have changed.
And maybe, yeah, no, it won't be tomorrow. But worse than that is maybe they'll start screwing it around on both sides. Because remember, you have to vote to get it started and to finish it. So it was this, oh my gosh, it was a mess.
You can have too much democracy.
Yeah, it turns out, I'm not sure that's really the takeaway here.
No.
So much as that some things for the betterment of society are best when they're standardized.
That is definitely true.
I think that's more of the takeaway.
Video. I'm sorry, I'm not technical enough to have any suggestions, I'm afraid. Kendra says she can't load the video.
Of us right now?
Yeah.
I have no.
I'm sorry, none of us know enough about Instagram.
But you know what I would do is try either rebooting Instagram or just rebooting your phone. That would be the direction I would go in, honestly. Yeah. And if it works, it works. And we're going to be here.
Yep. Okay. Well, good luck. And I hope that if you can't see us now, you can watch it afterwards. Watch the recording. Meg's hearing us. Okay. So since some people can hear us,
okay,
let's move on to content.
They can hear, but hold on. Can you see us or can you just hear us? Can you let us know? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Let's move on to content in the meanwhile, because even just audio is fine. I mean, we're beautiful. This is true, but we're here for the content.
Basically with our very artistic white backgrounds on both sides. Okay. So we are here to talk about a concept in Jewish law. Okay, Meg is seeing and hearing us. A concept in Jewish law, which I'm going to say
that has amazingly wide ramifications.
Very, very wide. So we say in Jewish English, every chumrah is also a kula, which means I was trying to think. I came up with a good way to say this in English. Every stringency is also a leniency.
Yes.
Which that makes perfect sense to us, but for people who are not familiar with our special technical terminology, I think that you can say that anytime you decide to be extra strict, you're going to end up letting something else slide.
Right. Because the fact of the matter is that we're always weighing our priorities and we're always weighing our values. And all of these, and whenever we've got a decision to make, it's always, we always have to go through a set of competing values.
And I think a lot of times it happens subconsciously and we don't notice that we're the things that we are not prioritizing, and we're just like, oh, I can make this my top priority, I'll put all of my energy here, and we're not even considering the fact that it comes at the expense of something else. But basically the idea is anything that you make a priority is coming at the expense of other things.
Yes. Yesterday I went refrigerator shopping, and you can see how this ties in automatically because it's a very large purchase.
Yes.
And I had to prioritize all of and there are so many things to consider, right? There are so many different things to consider. Price, size, convenience, energy efficiency, all of these things. And the fridge that I thought I wanted turned out that once I actually was faced with the realities of these different decisions that I was making, the fridge that I thought I wanted was not the one that I purchased in the end. I purchased something that I thought that I had initially seen and thought, no, I can't imagine this is what we actually want. But when it came to the priorities of energy efficiency and size, that mattered more than basically any other frill that it might have had. Yeah,
absolutely. And yeah, I mean, when I got my fridge, it was a gift from my father. It was a housewarming present, lovely housewarming present. And so the trade-off was the one my dad got a great deal on and could have delivered that day versus every other consideration. We went with the free fridge.
Exactly.
Yep. But okay, so I think that when we're making purchases with money, we tend to be actually more aware of this fact because we're like, this is money that I would otherwise be saving or spending on something else. And a lot of times we do actually weigh up what the competing demands or options for spending this money are. But I think a lot of times in our more day-to-day life, we're not as cognizant of the fact that we're making trade-offs and picking things to prioritize and to deprioritize. I was wondering if maybe you had an example of something like that.
Oh my goodness. It's probably going to involve the laundry. It's going to involve the laundry. Yes, this is going to. Because the kids always have clean clothing. They just have to find it in the piles. I'm a big folder, right? I like folding things. I like things folded. I like things neatly folded. And then the putting away part is where things really collapse. You would think, right? If I look,
I am laughing because I know one of your clients who also does not like putting clothing away.
Right. I like folding the clothing. I like it all neat. I love, oh my gosh, I learned to fold clothing through Marie Kondo and I've never gone back. It's the best folding technique ever. If Google it, if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's the best folding technique ever.
There is one downside. There is one downside, which is if you Marie Kondo enough stuff, then you
Uh-huh.
don't have enough clothing to fill the drawer, and then it doesn't actually stand up. It all flops over. So I've actually had to go back to laying some things down because my drawer is empty. But that's a
Okay,
problem for another time.
fine. But I'm talking about just the folding bit. If you don't do anything else, just do the folding thing. Make your life a little bit better today. Um,
Okay, back to
okay.
prioritizing.
So, right. So prioritizing. Um, yeah. I can, just give me a second here because I really wasn't. You know what? I really want the house to be a lot tidier than it is. I really, really do. But what I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to do for that is I'm not going to be yelling at people, and I'm not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily even going to be making demands of the other people who live in this house simply because I know what they're going through. I know what they're juggling. And it would be more than a little bit unfair for me to put these demands on them as well.
Mm-hmm.
So while the clean house would be a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful thing, the reality is that the house isn't always tidy or progressively, or what actually ends up happening is that it is until it isn't. And we have to start all over again, which is fine. But it's the deprioritization of the tidiness of the house in order to prioritize people, like basically everything else in our lives,
Mm-hmm.
quite frankly. Mhm.
I mean, I think that in like, traditionally, when I hear the original concept used in Jewish religious circles, that we tend to hear, or I think we should hear it more often brought up when people are saying, there's no point in not being a little extra strict here. You can be a little more careful with what you eat. You can spend a little more time praying.
Mhm.
And then the question is always at the expense of what? If you're spending more time praying, are you spending less time with your family? If you're being more careful with what you eat, does that mean that you are spending more money on food so you have less to give to charity? Does it mean that you're going out to eat by other people less because you're stricter than they are? Or does it mean you're demanding other people be stricter than they would normally be,
Mhm.
thereby taking advantage of their time and effort? And so we use it a lot, yeah, exactly, to remind us of like that kindness to other people, or that demanding things from other people is also something that we have to take into account
Yes.
when planning our lives.
I know a rabbi who is very, very careful in his own house to eat a particular kind of chicken. It's a very particular kind of preparation of the chicken, right? And he won't tell anybody what it is outside of his home. It's a secret. Nobody knows what it is. It's a particular slaughter. It's a particular
Mm-hmm.
kind of slaughter. He won't, but it's because it's more expensive. He simply will not tell anybody what it is because for him that's his choice to spend his money on, but he in good faith cannot impose such a thing on any of his friends or the people who go to synagogue,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's a really, really good example of taking on a stringency, which he will say it is, but being very, very careful not to use it to cudgel other people. And I think this goes right back to boundaries.
Yes.
Okay, we can more
Podcast.
about boundaries. There's always something else to say about
Yeah.
boundaries. Yes.
Well, I think I think if we're talking about thriving, then the concept of thriving, again, like back to the Chinese medicine perspective, is growth in the right direction. Because
Mm-hmm.
unbounded growth doesn't help anyone. That's like that tomato plant that doesn't have its little ladder and it falls over on the ground and all the tomatoes rot. Thriving is growth in the direction that we want to work towards, that we're aiming towards.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's, the boundaries are just an integral, I can't say this word in English, a built-in part of that. There's like two words I can't say in English, and that's one of them.
Okay. You're doing great.
Thank
You're
you.
doing great. But yes, they are. I think that even just being cognizant that the moment that we become very, very strict about one thing, whether it is our diet or whether it is the way the house looks or even the way we look, the minute we get very, very strict about something, something else is going to fall by the wayside, and it might also be something that you value. And it's very, very important to be on the lookout. As like it's almost like the downside. Like you need to prioritize, right? Nobody can be everything. It's impossible. So you need to prioritize, such as the fridge. New fridge, priority, because the old fridge is making strange noises. But new fridge, priority, right? But that means that anything else that I could have purchased has to be deprioritized. And this is also true with our time. Anything that we use our time on is something that we prioritize. And the trouble with time is that, especially if you're time blind, and it's only now or not now, then it's very, very difficult to prioritize, well, something that you don't really have a great feeling for, right?
That reminds me of someone who was saying that said everything I schedule in my calendar, instead of looking at it as, oh, nothing versus something, I need to look at it as the infinity of possibilities versus seeing one person for lunch.
Right. Okay. If I think that way, I will collapse into a small puddle.
You should not. But I was listening to a podcast today with, I'm terrible with names, but one of those doctors who specializes in longevity and long-term health, and he said that he has a chart on the wall. He has an estimate of how long he's going to live, and he printed out a chart, which is one square for every week that he expects to be alive. And at the end of every week, he grays out a square. And whenever he's trying to decide, do I want to spend time with my kids or go to another medical conference or write a book or work on a podcast or take on another committee, he thinks about that chart. I don't know if that would help for time blind people or if that would be more stress.
I don't know either. It's an interesting idea. But I would say prioritize writing the book. One of my friends passed away about a year ago, and all his grandkids are going to have is his book. They're going to have stories of him, but they also get to have his book. And his book, fortunately, is a memoir because he lived a rather amazing life.
I actually met someone. I thought this was the most amazing job. He said he's a ghostwriter, like his business card says ghostwriter, but he doesn't write books, like books. He writes, he's like, you call me when you turn 70, and we write the story of your life, and we put in pictures and prepare it so that when you're ready, your family has it.
Wow. That's beautiful. Yeah. So then it's worth it. Then it's absolutely worth it. But yeah, because that's the thing is with prioritizing things, I think that prioritizing, it's actually worthwhile to prioritize relationships that you will not have, but they will have with you, right?
Okay, break that down for me.
Okay. My youngest daughter doesn't remember my dad, right? He died when she was 3. But wow, has she heard about him. She has heard not all the stories, that's impossible. She has heard many and many of the stories, and she has definitely grown up with the knowledge that he adored her so, so much. So it's been 10 years, but she still has the relationship of knowing that she was so special. Right? And there is something to be said for, and we also say it to, like, oh gosh, my niece married this guy. Oh my gosh, I wish my dad could have met him. They would have loved each other. They would have been sitting in the back of the synagogue together heckling. We both know it. It was like, that's exactly what they would do. They would have just been
synagogue heckler.
Right? They would have been not that my father was anything, but always completely respectful, except for when my dad had his moments. He was a really funny person. He was just like, he had this amazing sense of humor. And I suspect that Benji would have brought out not necessarily it would have brought out even more of that if we could have put the two of them together. So even Benji has, so my father never met Benji, but Benji's heard all about my dad, and he also knows that given the opportunity, my dad would have adored him. Like phone calls on the daily kind of adored.
Wow. At some point, I remember my mother passed away, I can do math, 4 years ago, before COVID. And shortly before I was talking to her, and she was having a more coherent moment, and she said that she'd lived a good life, and she'd accomplished what she'd set out to do with her life, and that all she had left to hope for was that there would be thousands of people at her funeral, because she wanted to know that she had influenced the world. And she had impeccable timing and passed away the same day, like the anniversary of the death of a very, very respected,
beloved, deeply
overly
beloved.
intense, yes, rabbi, and was buried in the same cemetery at the same time as there was several thousand people were there.
I think more.
Several.
I think we're in
I don't
the
know
tens.
how
Isn't it
many.
the tens?
Well, I don't think all at the same time. Like
Okay.
there's a 3-day where they like
Okay.
they didn't want to let us in because the cemetery was full. Had to explain to them that we were actually not there for the festival. But so trying to hold a funeral in the middle of all this was a fascinating experience. I don't necessarily recommend it, but afterwards, people were coming up to me because they recognized that I was a member of the actual family, and saying, like, multiple people said we stopped because we were confused about what was going on, and then we realized it was actually a funeral. But we stayed for the eulogies because it was something you couldn't walk away from, and how each one had, I don't remember anymore because it was a very confusing day for me, but each one was like, this is something I'm going to take. Like this eulogy talking about this specific thing is something that I want to take with me. And so just like being able to influence how people think about life at your funeral, complete strangers.
Yes. Is that
Is
Anne? Yes, that is Anne, Megan Ann, right? Hi, Megan. Anne, I'm doing this. I'm working. She knew your mom also.
yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah. I think that so much of this, I think that there's the sense that time is just time. Like there's always another opportunity. And for as long as you're alive, there's always another opportunity. But it's a sort of, but time, I think, is the, what's the word for something that you value? Something like energy. It's like, is that the word? I'm trying, time is the thing that can slip through your fingers so easily because you can just, because you can end up doing something that you can afterward consider silly or frivolous, and next thing you know, that day is gone. I mean, I don't know if other people have this experience, but I definitely have this experience where, I set out to do a whole bunch of things, and some of the things and some of them actually even got done.
Mm-hmm.
But there are other
sometimes
times where I just went, you know what, I just need I need, for me, I need to prioritize a certain amount of rest.
mm-hmm.
I need to prioritize a certain amount of exercise, and then everything else kind of has to get built in around those things.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I think it's actually something that's true of all humans, especially listening to these like health and longevity doctors. It's just people with chronic illnesses are aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I remember when I was studying Chinese medicine, we had a class on cardiology, which was taught by a doctor who's a specialist in pulmonary medicine, but it was close. And he walked up to the board at the beginning of class and he wrote time equals, and then he waited to see, and people were like, money, energy, I don't remember what all, like money was obviously the big one, but people had some other things. Time is value, time is what you care about, time equals beauty, youth, whatever. And then he's like, okay, all of those are nice, but they're not true. Because you can always make more money, and you can always make more friends, and you can always get more makeup and be more beautiful. And he turned around, he wrote on the board, time equals myocard, which is heart muscle. And he's like, this you ain't getting back.
Oh, wow. Okay.
On the topic
When
of
you put it like that.
yes, topic of importance of fastest possible intervention when cardiac problems are a thing, but also I'm reminded of it when people are like, oh, we'll get more time, we'll do it later. It's like, well,
Yeah, you may not.
yeah.
Right. On the one hand, on the other hand, this is something that I want people to walk away with time is a finite resource. That was the word I was looking for the word resource. Time is a finite resource, and we can't live like we want to be able to live like that. The advice is to live like that, and it's really, really terrifying. So we can't actually realistically keep that in the forefront very, very much. But what I can say is this, is that if you have a relationship that's broken or a relationship that went sideways and it's possible to fix it, you can fix it. Like, especially when it comes to parent-child relationships, where things can go sideways for a while, but then you grow up and they grow up, and if there's another chance to meet again, things can get fixed. Things can get changed. If you mature, because part of the problem with being a parent is so often our own immaturity gets in the way of us being able to see clearly and to give our children what we actually need. Or sometimes it's their immaturity gets in the way of them being able to accept what it is that we're able to give. Hold on. Excuse me, sorry about that. Allergies. Oh, okay. Sometimes their immaturity gets in the way of them being able to accept what it is that we can offer them. And for as long as both of you are still alive, there is always hope. Don't ever give up hope. Sometimes it can take time, and you can't necessarily rush healing, but healing is always possible, especially when it comes to parent-child things. Sometimes you have to take responsibility for some things that you'd really rather not face. That's unfortunately really painfully true. But if you can be big enough to do those things, then you can usually make it through to the other side. And then there are always grandchildren, right? If for whatever reason the disconnect between the parent and child is too great, maybe the connection between between grandparent and grandchild will do it, because the old joke, right, is that the reason that grandchildren and grandparents are so close, they have a common enemy.
Yes, I was just thinking of that. Yeah, there's also, I do not remember, I'm afraid, which tribe it is, but there's apparently a group of people somewhere in South America, I'll find the book one day, where the grandparents and grandchildren use the same words for their grandparent and grandchild as they do for each other. So a grandfather would call his granddaughter's little wife, and the granddaughter would call her grandfather little brother or big brother. Big brother. Like it's the same. They're seen as being like the same relationship. And there's this idea that there's only two generations that are constantly alternating. And each one trying to fix what the other one does wrong.
That's really true. Yeah, I'm going to go with that. Yeah.
Well, there's a life coach I really like who said, he said most people try and raise their children either reproducing what they had because they had a good childhood, or doing the opposite of what they got because they didn't like their childhood. And in both of these cases, you're missing the fact that your child is a different person than you. And their needs are different than yours. So whether your needs were met or whether they weren't, that's not necessarily going to mean that doing the same.
I think that it's easier to reenact, not to see, to reenact the totally different things, to reenact our unmet needs than to see someone else's valid needs or even our own.
Well, I remember
so many of these things are we're blind to them. They're invisible.
Well, our unmet needs are the ones that are screaming. They're the squeaky wheel that gets the grease. If I have a need that's always been met, I might not even be aware that it's a need.
Right.
Just like the world. That's how it is.
But that's the exact other side, which is that if you have an unmet need that's never been met,
you might not even be aware of what you're missing.
Exactly. And it's still screaming at you.
Yes.
Hence the reenactment.
Mm-hmm.
Hence the reenactment.
Yeah. It's always it's going to keep coming up as something that's missing.
Right. And it's also part of the how we do one thing is how we do everything concept that comes up so often in coaching, which is that one belief that we have that holds that we have in our heads through so many different parts of our lives, and it's causing us to trip over ourselves or other people in all these different parts of our lives, not necessarily even the same way, not necessarily even the same way, but that same belief. And once you can get to that belief and catch it when it hits your head and go, wait, I've got other ways of thinking, then you can change everything. Yeah. So is that our takeaway, that people can actually grow and change, even if it sucks?
I think that's mostly the scenario takeaway for most episodes. I felt like this one was a bit more off the beaten track than some, but
I like this one though. I think that it's worthwhile talking more about needs met and unmet next week. I think that there's more to be said here. If you're still watching us and you want to put a comment in the bottom, if that's something that you'd be interested in hearing more about, please leave a comment. If you have any questions, also leave a comment. If you're part of the rewatch crew, leave a comment. I love the comments.
And basically, we need very little prompting to just talk about anything you're interested in hearing more about.
Yes, this is true.
Speaking of which, it turns out that I am giving the shiur for Shabbat HaGadol.
Oh wow! I thought you were trying so hard to delegate. Let me translate what you just said. That Havva is giving the oh gosh. It's the lesson for the Sabbath before Passover, and it is an extremely big deal. Like this is, so not to terrify you. It's a big deal.
So I had a backup topic prepared just in case the person who is going to be giving the lesson fell through, because usually if it falls through, then I will just say, all right, no lesson this week.
But you can't do that for this one. No, this is too important.
But it did occur to me that the subject is one that I would love to talk about with you, maybe before the lesson, maybe after the lesson. But when you're talking about why we celebrate freedom on Passover by having the holiday with the most restrictive rules ever.
Oh wow!
I've got my source sheets include Viktor Frankl and a woman with gambling addiction.
In an extreme nutshell, because I'm going to conflate a bunch of ideas that we would have to unpack, because true humility, being humble, is the biggest freedom that there is. And you see how I got there, right? Because I know that you can connect the dots.
I did see how you got there, and I was going to say that.
I think we're being unfair to our listeners.
We are, yeah. Well, this is a preview for later on. I say that true freedom is the ability to make your mind do what you want it to do, for which you need the humility to see that your mind needs help controlling itself.
Yes. I think that are we hitting our time slot?
I think so. I'm good. You're the one who has the time crunch today.
I do. Oh my gosh, and we are overtime. I have to run. I have to run right now.
Same time next week, where we will be talking about, what did you say? Unmet needs.
Unmet needs. That is next week. That's going to be a big one. Okay.
All right.
Okay, it was lovely. Okay, see you next week. Bye.
Have a great day. Bye.